I will soon be a Pokemon. Watch me. I will take over the world. I will be the scariest Pokemon of them all. I will be considered a legendary. What is this? Oh, that's Godzilla Ant. He got rejected. Just ignore him. He's sort of weird. I feel sort of bad for him. He's just like talking to himself. Should we do something? No, man. No. Just walk away. What is going on, guys? This is Dobbs here, bringing you another Pokemon video. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever asked yourself, are there more Pokemon out there? Pokemon that just never made it to the game? Pokemon that are lost in old desks and forgotten? Well, let me tell you, there are hundreds, if not thousands of Pokemon designs out there that just never made it to the game. And in this video, I'm going to show you 15 of them, ranking from my least favorite to my favorite. And keep in mind, these 15 Pokemon I'm about to show you were meant for Pokemon Red and Blue and Pokemon Gold and Silver, except for one, which was meant for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So that means these unreleased Pokemon are over 15 years old. And no, these are not fake, these are confirmed on Bulbapedia. And I'll leave the link in the description below. Oh, and one more thing before we start. I plan to make a top 10 beta Pokemon video. And if you don't know what beta means, it means it's a previous version of the final thing. So if this beta Pikachu has an annotation on it, that means it's done and released. And if you're on your phone or something, just look in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest. The first couple Pokemon that I'm going to show you are going to look pretty bad, and I can see why they were cut. But keep in mind, the designs get better and better throughout this video. And the top 5 Pokemon are definitely worth the wait, in my opinion. So for number 15, I chose this Oviparous creature. This Pokemon never got a name, and Oviparous pretty much means a creature that lays eggs. Now, it literally looks like a turd coming out of an egg. But it probably looks like that because of the point of view that we're looking at it at. But in the Bulbapedia, it says, this is artwork featuring early versions of Red and Rhydon inside of a cave. So maybe this was supposed to be the first evolution for Rhydon. So with that in mind, I think this Pokemon was supposed to be a rock and a ground type. For number 14, I chose Buhi. There's not a lot of information about this Pokemon, other than the fact that it has the same Pokedex number with Jinx, which is number 124, and also shares the same index number with Caterpie. But after looking closely at the design and this concept art, it sort of looks like it was planned to be a normal ghost Pokemon. Now, I'm sort of glad that they didn't do this, because that would be a very overpowered Pokemon. But still, it's interesting to see what a normal ghost Pokemon would look like designed by Nintendo. For number 13, I chose Papio. Now this Pokemon is really weird looking, probably the weirdest out of all these Pokemon. But could you imagine? This could have been a Pokemon from Pokemon Red and Blue, and this would just be a normal looking Pokemon to us. Now the only thing we know about this Pokemon is that it has the same Pokedex number as Quillfish, which is number 211. Now I think this Pokemon was supposed to be a bug poison type. It has like the same idea as coughing. It has like gas coming out of it. You never know, maybe this was the first concept for coughing. But I'm glad they didn't stick with this design because this is just plain weird. For number 12, I chose Kurusu. Now this is when it starts to get interesting, because this Pokemon was actually playable during the alpha demo of Gold and Silver. It knew the moves Growl, Water Gun, and Tackle, so it was a water type. But this is the kicker. It said in the demo that this was the water starter Pokemon. So this right here was the original water starter Pokemon for Pokemon Gold and Silver. But let me tell you, this isn't the only original starter in this list. There's one more, but that's later in the video. But isn't that crazy? Totodile wasn't originally going to be the water starter Pokemon for Pokemon Gold and Silver. So let me ask you, would you rather have Totodile or this Kurusu? And as for typing, I think Kurusu's final evolution was going to be a water ice Pokemon, which is pretty cool. For number 11, I chose this unnamed turtle. Nothing is known about this turtle other than the fact that it sort of looks like Tirtuga from Generation 5. So maybe this unreleased Pokemon inspired the design for Tirtuga. And for the typing, I think maybe a pure water Pokemon. But for some reason, I think this Pokemon had the potential to be a water dark Pokemon, which would have been very unique for Generation 2. For number 10, I chose this Pokemon. Just like a lot of other unreleased Pokemon in this list, this Pokemon doesn't have a name either. But I get the feeling that this Pokemon inspired the design for Hitmontop. But I don't think it was part of the Tyrogue evolution line. I think this was the first evolution for Hitmontop. But then they later decided to make Hitmontop a third evolution for Tyrogue. So they just scrapped this Pokemon altogether. And obviously, I think this Pokemon was supposed to be a fighting type. For number 9, I chose this unnamed rabbit. Now this Pokemon doesn't have a name, nor an official design. It was originally going to be a rabbit with a flower on its nose. Hironobu Yoshida is a Pokemon graphic designer who's been involved in many games. But in an interview with Nintendo Life, Hironobu said he scrapped the design because it didn't make sense in its environment. But I think that's unfortunate, because I think a rabbit Pokemon would have been a great addition to Pokemon Gold and Silver. And for the typing, I think this Pokemon would have been a pure grass type. Now this is part of the video where the Pokemon designs start to become more interesting. And so for number 8, I chose this unnamed sheep Pokemon. Now this Pokemon was based off the first sheep that was cloned, named Dolly. But Junichi and Ken decided to take out this Pokemon because it was considered too controversial for Pokemon. It was likely that this sheep Pokemon was supposed to be in Generation 2 because Dolly was born almost 8 months after the first release of Pokemon Red and Green. According to Bulbapedia, some fans believe that instead of being abandoned entirely, the rejected design was reworked into Mareep and Flaffy. But with the information given, I think this Pokemon would have been a pure normal type. For number 7, I chose Gorillamo. Now this is the counterpart of Godzillance, the Pokemon you saw in the intro. I think these two Pokemon had a rivalry, sort of like Nidorino and Gengar. These two Pokemon are based off of Godzilla and King Kong. Now I think this is the first battle drawn out by Game Freak between two Pokemon. And for Gorillamo's typing, I think he would have been a pure normal type. But I could definitely see him being a fighting type also. For number 6, I chose Cabine. I know what you're thinking. Why would you choose this Pokemon? This literally looks like a Jigglypuff with a human face. Well, the fan art is what got me. After seeing the concept art recreated into this awesome HD image, I think it looks amazing. It looks like a raccoon with a leaf on its head. Like, that is just so unique and awesome. It's basically a Jigglypuff that's a grass type. It states on the Bulbapedia that this could be an early prototype of Snorlax because it somewhat resembles a simplified caricature of Koji Nishino. And if you didn't know, Snorlax was based off of Koji Nishino, and he's basically a game designer for Pokemon. And so for the typing that I would choose for Cabine would be a pure grass type, but then adopt the dark type in Generation 2. Alright, so this one's going to blow your mind. Sometimes referred to as Latizikin or Latikin, mostly by the fans, this creature shares traits with both Latias and Blaziken. Now, I'm just very curious. Was this originally going to be the starter Pokemon or the legendary Pokemon? With this picture of the female trainer flying on this fusion Pokemon, it makes me believe that this was going to be the starter final evolution. But that makes me wonder what would fill the spot with Latios. Would Latios just be a single legendary Pokemon with no counterpart? Did Latios even exist when this creature was created? Who knows, but this is probably one of the most interesting things that I've seen in Pokemon. And for the typing, I think this Pokemon is definitely going to be a fire flying Pokemon. So do you remember when I said that there was another original starter in this list? Well, here it is. Honoguma, the original fire starter Pokemon for Pokemon Gold and Silver. This Pokemon knew Ember, Scratch, and Leer in the alpha version of the game. We know that this was going to be a fire bear Pokemon because Hono means flame and Kuma means bear. And also, some fans believe that this was an early version of Teddiursa. To me, this Pokemon looks like a mixture of Pikachu and some kind of bear. And as for the typing, I think it was going to be a pure fire type. Alright, so the final 3. And so for number 3, I chose 3 Pokemon because they're the only known unreleased Pokemon with an evolution chain, and that is Kokana, Kasanaji, and Kasanaji's evolution. Now I just love the designs for these Pokemon. Just the whole top hat, fancy clothes theme to these Pokemon, I just think it's very unique. And so anyways, Kokana is actually an early version of Weedle, but the rest of the evolution chain were completely replaced by Kukuna and Beedrill. And I think it's unfortunate that they completely scrapped them out because I really like the designs. So maybe in the future, we'll see a recreation of these unreleased Pokemon. And for the typing, I think they have the potential of being a bug fighting type. Alright, so the final 2 have the coolest designs in my opinion, and I think it sucks that they didn't make it to the game. So for number 2, I chose this Pokemon. It doesn't have a name, but it's likely that there was originally 2 legendary dogs, and this was a mixture of Suicune and Raikou, and they later decided to make it into 2 dogs. But it would have been awesome having a legendary Pokemon that was water electric type. So could you imagine a world where it was this Pokemon and Entei? I don't know, man. They should have just added this as a 4th dog because it's such an awesome design. And for the number 1 spot for my favorite unreleased Pokemon is Dragon 4. And no, you didn't hear that wrong. His name is actually Dragon 4. Probably because he was the 4th design for a dragon and never really got an official name. The only things we know about this unreleased Pokemon is that it has the same Pokedex number as Jigglypuff, which is 174, and that it sort of looks like Charizard. Even though it's most likely a beta version of Charizard, I still want to believe that this was going to be a legendary Pokemon for Pokemon Red and Blue. And this concept art of these 2 dragons, one being Dragon 4 and one being his counterpart, which is made up, just made me think that having an exclusive dragon for each game would have been a very cool feature. Like the blue dragon being a water dragon type and the red dragon being a fire dragon type. Like that would have been amazing. But that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and hopefully had your mind blown. I spent a lot of time on this video, so if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like. I appreciate it a ton. And also be sure to subscribe if you're enjoying the channel. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for fan interactions, video updates, and other cool stuff, follow me at Ethan Dobbs. And for the question of the day, which unreleased Pokemon did you like the most? Leave it down in the comments. Can't wait to see what you guys have in mind. Until next time, see ya.